everybody.
Hey, Melissa.
Hey,
Melissa, okay, I just want to check my mic here, see if you can hear me okay.
I can hear you.
Evening, everyone.
Hi, Kevin.
Adrian, did you see I forwarded a couple of emails from Marco a few minutes back?
Oh, I hadn't checked that yet, but
Okay.
I
Yeah,
will
you
on
sent them
the-
at the end of the day, and I just got them when I got back to the office here.
Is Wayne still having issues with audio?
Wayne, can you hear us? I think he's still having issues, yes.
It doesn't look like he's muted.
We cannot hear you, Wayne. Wayne, do you want to call in? I can send you the number.
I'd also just check your speaker settings there for the in the corner around where the mute icon is. And you might want to try just calling in.
We still can't hear you, Wayne. Did you want me to proceed with the opening remarks? Adam, do you want me to start with the opening remarks and then Wayne can call the meeting to order once he has figured out his audio?
Yeah, I don't know if he is you know if he's able to hear us on the other line here?
It doesn't seem that way.
Yeah, I don't know if he has any mic or audio. So, okay. Yeah, maybe just message call in with the information provided and then just go ahead on the opening remarks.
I'm just going to call him quick. One moment, please.
Yep.
Okay, I will proceed with opening remarks. Wayne is to attempt to correct his audio issues. Otherwise, Ray Pearson, we will ask you to step up as chair. As the province of Ontario declared a state of emergency and continues to take significant steps to limit the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the City of Kenora continues to protect the health and safety of the public, council, and employees, while at the same time proceeding or processing Planning Act applications to ensure services that support community development can continue. Therefore, in accordance with Bylaw 73/2020, this is a virtual hearing of the Planning Advisory Committee and Committee of Adjustments for the City of Kenora. This meeting is being held virtually by way of Zoom meeting and is intended to be in accordance with the Planning Act and orders made under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. Prior to the chair calling the meeting to order, I will go over a few housekeeping items. Number one, please ensure that your microphone is on mute. The microphone image can be found at the bottom of your screen. If you're having difficulty, please raise your hand and the meeting organizer, being Adam Smith, will mute you. If you are on a landline, please click the mute button. And if you do not have a mute option, please ensure you are in a quiet place without interruptions. And I do apologize because my children are home this evening and you may hear them. Should you be joining the meeting with video, please be mindful of what is visible to the public in your surroundings. And please also ensure you are in a quiet area without background interruptions. Be respectful of others throughout the meeting. If at any time you wish to leave the meeting, you are free to do so by simply clicking on End Call at the bottom of your screen. If you are on a landline, you may hang up at any time. However, please do not interrupt the meeting to inform your dismissal. When it is time for public comments, and we do have a few members of the public here with us this evening, the chair will address the participants by name as you have registered with us in advance of the meeting. Once your name has been called, please then unmute your microphone or your telephone. If you're having difficulty, again, please raise your hand and the organizer will assist you. When addressing the application, we would appreciate if your comments could be limited to 5 minutes. And then once your comments are complete, please mute your microphone. There may be subsequent questions for you, and again, you can simply unmute at that time. If at any time you do require the attention of the chair, please raise your hand and we will acknowledge you. Please note this meeting is being recorded, so each of you should have seen that little note on your screen. By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. So the committee members here this evening, whom I'll ask to quickly raise their hands to the screen, have been appointed by council to consider applications for minor variances, consents, plans of subdivision, and condominium descriptions within the jurisdiction of the Planning Act. The applicants or agents will be given an opportunity to speak on behalf of their submissions and to respond to questions arising from discussion of these applications. Again, interested members of the public will also be given the opportunity to speak in favor or in opposition of the applications being heard. Please wait until your name is called prior to making comment. All persons addressing the committee shall state their full name and mailing address and direct their comments through the chair. Decisions will be mailed or emailed to the applicant agent to all their interested parties who have provided their mailing address. So this evening we are hearing 2 applications for amendments to the zoning bylaw. So this evening, PAC will be making recommendation to council. The statutory public meeting will be held in December. So I will just gloss over the rest of the introduction here, and I will introduce myself, the Secretary Treasurer for the City of Kenora Planning Advisory Committee. My name is Melissa Shaw. The City Planner here with us this evening is Kevin Sumner, and the Manager of Development Services, Adam Smith, is here with us as well. Wayne, how are you doing? Okay, it looks like he's still having difficulties. I think he'll be attempting to call me here. So if you could just pause and hold on 1 minute, Ray, we'll see if we will be asking you to step up as chair.
Okay.
Okay, Ray, maybe ask you please to step up as chair for the meeting, and when you're ready, you can call it to order and we will proceed.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Please bear with me. Kind of short notice to jump into the chair position tonight. However, we will bring the meeting to order. And I'll ask if there's any additions to the agenda.
I have none.
Having none. Okay, declaration of interest by any member for this meeting or at a meeting at which a member was not present. Anybody declaring?
I have received none.
Okay, none. Adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting. Anyone have any
We
questions?
did receive, sorry if I could interrupt, Tanis, we did receive corrections by way of member Bev Richards and member Tanis McIntosh.
Okay, I have a couple myself. I'm not sure if Bev or Tanis addressed them, but one, I wasn't listed as present at the meeting. Did you catch that one?
Sorry, Ray.
You got that? And the second one on page 6, the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th paragraph down where we talk about the Northwest Health Unit approval. I believe that last line should read approval.
Correct.
You got that correction?
Yeah, Tanis did flag that already, so we've completed that sentence.
Okay, good. All right. Okay. All corrections have been made, so all in favor? Okay, minutes are approved.
Thank you.
Okay, where are we here? Is there any additional correspondence relating to the applications before the committee?
There were a few amendments to the original reports posted for PAC members, and I believe each of you have seen those amendments made by the city planner. In addition, today, the architect on file D14-2002 did send amended site plans for parking on the River Street site, and those 2 have been circulated to each member. Comments from the municipal engineer regarding the newly submitted parking configurations have also been received. And so the city planner will read those in as part of the planning report.
Okay. All right, well then we'll move on to consideration of the recommendation to council for application for an amendment to the zoning bylaw 101 2015 application D14-20-02. So we'll start with that one.
Good evening, everyone. Application D14-2002 has been received to, oh, sorry, was somebody saying something?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. To amend the zoning of an unaddressed property on River Street, the former site of the St. James Anglican Church, from I institutional zone to R2 residential second density zone. This will allow for conversion of the existing structure on the property into a duplex dwelling with an interior secondary dwelling unit. The applicant has provided a proposed site plan, and as Melissa just mentioned, we had some optional parking plans provided today, and I'll speak more to those later. The applicant has also provided a proposed plan for the interior layout of the structure. You'll see that there's proposed to be a main floor dwelling unit at the front of the main floor, a second dwelling unit that's at the back of the main floor and in the basement, and then an accessory suite on the north side of the basement as well. So this is located in a residential area of Keewatin. All the adjacent properties are zoned R1, residential first density. And this is about a block southwest of the commercial center of Keewatin along Ottawa Street. The building, as I mentioned, was formerly a place of worship. I did attend the property for a site visit on November 10th, and you'll see in the report 2 photos from the southwest and the northwest corners of the property. You can see that from those photos that topography is an issue on the property. There's a fair amount of drop to the street as it proceeds to the north, and that it will be germane to our comments on parking in a minute or two here. In regards to consistency with legislated policy and city directives, the proposed rezoning is consistent, in my opinion, with the provincial policy statement, which generally encourages residential development, especially in regards to providing a range and mix of housing types and densities in urban centers. And it also is compliant with the City of Kenora official plan, which in the established area recommends a mix of residential, commercial, and industrial and institutional uses, and encourages residential development specifically. Minor changes to land use are to be permitted through amendment of the zoning bylaw, as we see here today. Changing to the R2 zone will allow for the development of single detached, semi-detached, or duplex housing and other compatible uses. We see that the applicant has submitted information regarding their intended use, but rezoning to R2 will allow for the full range of uses in the future that are permitted in the R2 zone. And also just a brief note regarding the Keewatin Community Improvement Plan, which has a goal of increasing the supply of affordable rental and ownership accommodation in the neighborhood. We circulated this for interdepartmental and agency comments. We essentially received no concerns or no comments from Environmental Division, Road Division, the Parks and Facilities Division, Synergy North, and Kenora Fire and Emergency Services, as well as the Building Department. We did receive a comment from engineering expressing concern that parking for a multi-unit building may not be achievable as shown in the original site plan. It would not be recommended to allow any permanent on-street parking, as River Street is already narrow directly in front of the building and northerly from that point. The access off of River Street to the northwest corner of the lot is suspected based on the road being in the range of 3 meters lower than the property, making any vehicle access into the lot for parking difficult or impossible, coupled with the fact that the sewer and water servicing into the lot also at this location, potentially making any lower of land for access further complicated depending on the depth of the bury of the sewer and water services. And the engineer requested more detail, which, as I mentioned, was provided by the applicant. And you have seen those 3 concepts that were provided. And I'll just read in the comments that the engineer provided late today in regards to those updated plans. His comment was that an architect is not one to figure out parking configurations. Parallel parking is not going to work, and diagonal or perpendicular parking is needed. In follow-up to questions of how deep is the sewer, he would be hesitant to put a parking lot or driveway over the church sewer and water, not knowing how deep those services are installed, as they could be shallow based on the high hill they're buried in. So the north parking area may not be recommended just for this reason.
Okay.
I wouldn't recommend such an access on the city right of way to access the north side that would wrap around the front of the church, as this is unconventional and forever takes away any future use of the right of way by the city. The south side seems more practical, but that would mean the ramp access would be lost into the building. I'm not sure if this accessibility into the building is a must by planning or building, and to which I can comment that it is not a requirement on our side. As stated above, non-parallel parking layouts need to be investigated by the developer. For example, not sure how one is to maneuver in or out of the most easterly stall depicted on any of the 3 options. And just I would add my own further comment to that, given the amount of space on the property, we have no reason to believe that the developer won't be able to come up with a satisfactory parking solution, given the amount of space on the property. And certainly that would need to be addressed prior to issuance of building permits. But we don't see that as a significant concern in terms of the question here today before the committee, which is the rezoning of the property from I to R2. We didn't receive, moving on to public comments, the public meeting is scheduled to be held by council on December 8th. Notice of the application was given in accordance with the Planning Act and was circulated to property owners within 120 meters of the property, published in the municipal memo on November 12th, and circulated to legislated persons and public bodies. And also notice was provided of our meeting here tonight. As of the date of this report, or as of now, no public comments have been received. In regards to my evaluation, this property was previously used as a church, but has been vacant for several years. The plan and the official plan and community improvement plan are supportive of increasing the housing supply in the area. If improved, the requested rezoning will add to the supply of housing, opening more opportunities for tenants who seek to reside within a centralized location of Keewatin. There appears to be sufficient room for that, for the required parking spaces on the site. And therefore, my recommendation as planner for the city of Kenora is that the application for zoning bylaw amendment to change the zoning of the subject property from I institutional zone to R2 residential second density should be approved.
Okay.
I'll turn it back over to the committee. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. To the applicants, do you have anything to add to your proposal?
Yes, I do. I'd like a minute to introduce myself, if that's okay. And then, yes, I do. So first of all, I'm happy to, can I go ahead?
Absolutely. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you. I don't use Zoom that often, so I'm noting the hand up section just now. So my name is Adrienne Dewan. I came to Kenora for a summer from Vancouver. What was supposed to be a seasonal business, aesthetic business that I offered to my patrons of my family's Nature's Inn hotel. Fortunately for me, I've been well supported by the community, and one season has quickly changed into 7.5 years that I'm celebrating a successful business. And now I'm ready to invest back into the community with the purchase of my first home. I've just this year been offered to purchase this building from my family member. I currently plan to be the sole owner and principal residence of half the building. As for a brief building history, as Kevin's already mentioned, the church ceased to be a church voluntarily due to lack of congregation, in case anybody didn't know. The 7 to 10 person congregation has used the building and street parked successfully for their last years up until 2015, when it was privately sold. So the River Street community neighbors have enjoyed a quiet, vacant neighbor for the last 5 years under our ownership. With the exception of a few generous donated evenings to the Palliative Care Women's Quilting Guild, as well as temporary kids' day camp summer usage, both of which use ample street parking on River Street and the wider Superior Street that runs perpendicular. It should also be noted that daycare plans for this building have been approved in the past, which would of course indicate a lot of drop-off pickup traffic. I'm thankful for the support and the guidance that the planning department has given me. I've been really impressed with them so far. Whilst making this property a single home for just myself, being a single entrepreneur is exciting, but I'd much prefer the permission of a suitable plan to share with others, especially because this building is 3 to 4 times the square footage of any other on this block, not to mention historically the oldest. Thankfully, upgrades to the building have been kept, have made the building impressively still viable. It would be a shame to continue to use this building for storage and let it deteriorate slowly over time. But first things first, I would need your help to be allowed to reside here. The zoning, to be allowed to rezone here, of course, the zoning must achieve new status, which is the R2. And with that, I ask the council to keep in mind, surely the most important conversation of our town right now, our housing crisis and providing multiple products, whether it's seniors, low income, or affordable housing. Creating more just diversifies the community. This is the perfect opportunity for private entrepreneurship to be supported by the community of Kenora interests. Also, it's a large, just so you understand, it's a large economic bill for me to foot alone. So all I ask is for that when hearing these proposals and these details, that the council consider leniencies and special amendments to be considered where they may come up for the greater good of solving mutual challenges. As we know in Q8, one thing with these older buildings is the rock of the ground that everyone has in their basement, that sometimes we have to do things a little differently when we have challenges that come up. And I especially noted the summer camps and the Quilters Guild nights as usage to note that this building actually in front of it has been able to do a slightly, which unfortunately isn't on the drawings that has been shown, but 3 to 4 building cars have been successfully able to park angrily in front of the building, not on the property, that in respect to what the engineer has said, that River Street is narrow, which it is northernly of the building, but actually if you hit the church dead center, the natural outset of the rock actually has a natural inset, which has allowed for these 3 to 4 parallel parked cars. And I have photos of River Street on the south end that will show you a non-restricted view going forward with those cars parked there. So actually there's a little bit of an opportunity for growth there when talking about the amendments or the leniencies that could potentially be. So I think giving the council a few more photos and a better look of what that looks like Anyone attending the property and a quick view, yes, the property line is actually quite large and there's a lot of property, but if you really walk it, it does have some height challenges, but nothing that can't be rectified with different ideas. The widening of that the engineer is referring to on the northwestern side of the property could actually be widened for a little bit more of a gap as well. Where the street parking starts there, what they're talking about, that 3 foot high off the road, at least half of that 3 foot high on the south side, 50% of it is man-made stacked rock. It's not a boulder that can't be removed. It looks like it was a traditional retaining wall that was built that is neatly stacked rock by rock. So it's possible that those rocks could be removed, widening the access entry point of the northwest angle of the property. So I wish we were in person in a way that I'd be able to circulate some better photos for you, because I think you'd visually see better what I'm discussing. Also on the right side of the property, which is the south side, which I think has already been in some of Janina's drawings there, is that a perfectly legal width driveway, no skinnier, no wider than the neighbor directly next to it, could be made for a direct pull into the property with at least 2 cars there, possibly 3, with a reverse out and a straight drive in without any problem. So that could be a solution to 2 of the 3 cars right there. As for the ramp, I mean, that's a good point. The ramp, we are lucky, I mean, to have the biggest ramp in Keewatin. That right side of the south side of the property, if you were to make a legal driveway size, because of the nature of the ground, there is some larger rocks that raise the height towards the center of the property. So the height of the ramp with the height combined with the center of the south side of the property rock could actually be filled in to create a suitable driveway that would fix the angles coming off of the road acceptably, in my opinion. So again, I'm sorry that I don't have better photos to distribute here. I wasn't sure if Zoom might be able to add documents as you go. I think that's about it to now. That's about it for now. It also should be said, just briefly, and then I'll give the floor up here, that River Street is no more narrow than any other street it runs parallel to in Keewatin. And actually, when you look at the picture, it actually shows it pretty well. When you look at the photo that you've all been given, and you look at the front of the church there, it's almost outlined, and exactly what I'm talking about there, I forgot about this, in that dark gray area where that grass, which is not really grass, it's actually a bunch of rock, starts. So that actually becomes, you could argue that that part of River Street in front of my property actually becomes the widest part of River Street. So when I'm speaking to leniences and allowances and how we might work together to widen that access off the southwest corner, these are the kind of little tweaks that I'm talking about that we can come up with, explore some options of how to make that possible, so that that northerly side of the building isn't totally wasted on bush and brush. So that's what I would say to that. Also noted on the River Street is you can see clearly the city property line across the street, that actually this above ground photo is a great example of cars parked in their driveway, that actually the entire driveway is on a city property. We of course would not, nobody wants to be unreasonable, and nobody, you know, everybody wants to work together. There's certainly no reason why I would ever ask any neighbor to move their driveway. That's simply silly. But sometimes in Keewatin, our older properties, the exposed rock, the sideway that ends partially before the ramp. I mean, there's little idiosyncrasies that we have to work around and deal with. And that's all I ask, is that you think open-mindedly about that. And if Mr. Smith, Chair, could I just have one more minute? I know I'm probably over my time here. I haven't run my time clock. Is that okay?
Sure, one more minute.
Okay. I don't do Zooms very often. I'm reading Melissa's rules of 5 minutes. Keep your comments. Okay. Oh, now I forget what I was going to say. Yeah. Okay. Well, now I forget what I was going to say. Sorry.
We can come back to you. There likely
Sure.
questions.
Oh, I was going to say, considering what we're deciding in these meetings here is reuse of the building. So is it a good idea, and is it feasible to be used as residential? As Kevin says, it is. It makes total sense. And I don't think that I probably have to convince anyone on that panel that wouldn't believe that also. But considering who the residents might be as well. So far, it's just me. I have a demographic of clients that are 50 to 75 years old, waiting to sell their home and buy a new product. What if the residents in the back building, being a duplex, in time when we have to be forward thinking and planning a community, what if that possibly ends up being a few seniors as the demographic? So Handy Transit, which are also customers of mine that operate that's a service they provide. When driver's licenses get lost, a lot of my customers are dropped off and picked up by their partners when it comes to my business at the Nature's Inn. So certainly that happens for personal trips as well. Also, when providing mixed use housing, whether it's low income housing, affordable housing, or whatever product of housing you're talking about, not everyone owns a car. It's definitely recommended to own a car in the cold weather that we have, but because it's centrally located, we do have city bus service that we pay for use. So we don't know what kind of demographic or who the person might be. So as the council thinks about housing going forward, you don't necessarily know who the demographic will be. So whether there's cars, whether transit's an option, we're not a big enough city that has a car ride or sharing option. But that has been what they've done in Winnipeg when it comes to converting churches on, I think it's Victoria Street, to be able to make that exact argument. The wide version of Superior Street is often used for parking as well when it comes to St. Louis Church, 3 blocks away. And that's only for a couple hours on a Sunday. So there are lots of, and I don't think with the plan, last point is that in lieu of a better name, I suppose, we kind of rushed to call it St. James Apartments right away, but I kind of hesitate to call it that because really you're looking at a duplex building, 1 building, 2 building, which is semi-detached. So rather than side by side, it's front and back. So 2 buildings plus an additional suite. So we're really producing 3 homes here. So any home on the street right now that is a neighbor produces, 1 car, maybe 2, and maybe a second suite. So we're really not that much bigger. So I just want you to keep that in mind when thinking about who the residents might be and how it might work, and going back to how do we work together to solve a common problem. And that's it.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I'll ask if there's anybody online here that wants to speak in favor of the application.
Hi, my name is Nicole Perron, and we're here, my husband Steve and I are here on behalf of our parents who live on 1102 Superior Street. One of our main questions tonight, with the way that the zoning is second density, I believe, is that the intent, the main intent is to have a multi-resident dwelling instead of perhaps a group home or boarding house emergency shelter?
Are you speaking to me?
Yes.
I'll take that. Yeah, makes sense. Yes. So I don't know if you've got the layout there, but it's separated into 2 buildings, right? So
No, we do not have the layout. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if you had done that, that would explain what I just said. So you both understand what a duplex would look like. One house split into two. So you're making two residences.
Mhm.
So that is essentially what we're doing. But rather than side by side, when they're front to back, because this building is very long, it's a front housing and it's a back house. So essentially you're creating two houses, and in one of the houses on the bottom, I guess, left-hand side or northerly side, there is room for an independent self-contained suite. So you yourself in a home, your home is one home, and if you were to do a secondary suite to create housing and to have income, that would be a secondary suite. So that's two
Great.
dwellings. So essentially, to answer your question, we are creating 3 dwellings.
And you yourself would be the principal resident of these dwellings?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
The
Well-
front half of the building is intended to be my 2-bedroom home.
Right. Okay. Do we have any other questions?
It's all like the sale. culminating.
And when does this, when do you expect this to come into effect, Adrian?
Well, the process here right now is the second meeting is on the 8th, of course. So I imagine that's going to include more pictures, more parking conversations, more back and forth to come up with hopefully 3 different options and get approval for hopefully 1, 2, 3. And then we'll go with economically, personally, which one we're going to choose, because obviously that's always a factor, especially with construction around Kenora. So the city council, if Melissa told me correctly, is that after the second meeting on the 8th, they would come back with an answer on December 15th. So around that time, mid-December, we would be able to tell you. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, is anyone online to speak against this application? Okay, hearing none, I'll move on to questions and clarifications from the committee members. We'll start with you, Bev, if you don't mind.
Okay. I just thought of a question when she was talking right now, and I don't know if anybody can answer it or not, but I'm wondering, because of what she said, we know that the road goes right past the front of the church, and it's not very wide, and it goes down to where she's wanting to park. I'm wondering if there's any way that we could survey that piece, because we know that it's owned by the city. What
Yeah.
if we surveyed that piece and sold it to her, and then she would be able to park a little bit, maybe two cars down there, and maybe the others up on top or something. I'm just throwing it out there. I just thought of it. I'm wondering if that would be an option. The city can stop up and close. That would become her property, and then she would have that access. Although it's not very big, it might just solve like for a couple of vehicles in there. I don't know. Just throwing that out. My other questions, Kevin has already basically answered. For me, my main concern is the parking access, where they're going to park, and now you're talking about the ramp. So I would think the engineering department would probably be on top of that. That was my main concern.
Okay, thanks, Bev. John Barr?
Yeah, I think there's lots of room on the property for parking. It's just the access into the parking lot, more or less, that seems to be the issue. However, when you drive around Kenora in the wintertime, you see lots of cars parked on the street with their elevated plug-ins and that. But looking at the property itself, again, the ramp area, whether you can get access to that side, you might want to get access to both sides. The piled up rock barrier on the one side, once you pull that out, you don't know what's there. Again, I don't think it's up to us to worry about that. It's up to the engineering department and the proponent to come up with an access solution. So that would be my only comment.
Okay, thanks, John. Tanis?
I think I'd like to clarify, tonight's not to discuss the parking. It's to discuss if this can be changed to an R2 zone. So in terms of the question from the public, this is the current plan for the R2 zone. In 10 years, because it's been rezoned, somebody else could buy the building and yes, build a multi-residential building. This is the current plan being presented, but the R2 zone does allow multiplexes. In terms of it being compliant with the community improvement plan with Keewatin, I think it's consistent. I think it's needed. And to Ms. Dwan's comment, the potential for affordable senior housing with her current plan is an excellent one. So it's our decision here tonight if we're going to allow the rezoning. It'll be future work on the site planning. If there's going to have to be variances, that'll be brought up separately, and we'll see you again at that point. But really, am I comfortable allowing the zoning change? That's what I'd like us to all focus on, and I personally am comfortable at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. John McDougall.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I would echo what Tanis had to say about our mission here, about it moving to an R2. But I would also agree with the other PAC members that there's definitely a challenge that exists for parking, and that's going to create some challenges for somebody developing into a some type of a multi-unit facility. And but no, I agree 100%. I won't restate what Tanis had to say, but agree 100% with her.
Okay, thank you. Robert, are you with us tonight?
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chair, suffering with some technical difficulties. I'm running 2 laptops here, so I have no questions or comments with regards to this application, Mr. Chair. I'm very satisfied with it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there any further comments from the applicant there with respect to questions?
I don't think so at this time. I mean, I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said that, you know, what we're really just focusing right now is redirection of use, and does that make sense? And I think it's an astounding yes. And by next meeting, I think we'll be better prepared to justify some even further options. And I look forward to showing that to you.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I'll just turn it back to committee members for last comments. Bev, anything further to add?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, John Barr,
Nothing from me.
Tanis,
I'm good, thank you.
John McDougall,
Nothing from me, Mr. Chair.
and Robert.
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay,
Sorry, Ray, I think Wayne's rejoined the meeting. So I think he might have audio.
Wayne, are you there?
Oh, wait, I'm going to ask him on mute.
Hello.
Wayne?
Perfect.
Yes. The only problem, I think I'm going to remove myself from this particular application because I missed the first part. I never heard Kevin's report, and so I missed a bit of it just switching over here. So I'll remove myself from this particular application. Okay.
Fair enough. You're declaring a conflict on this application then?
Well, I guess, yeah, because like I say, I never heard the first part of the application.
Okay, that's accepted.
Mr. Chair, I would ask that I would be removed from that as well, too. I was unable to log in. I caught half of it, but not all of it. So I don't think it would be fair as me as well. We should have enough for quorum, I think, Mr. Chair.
Okay, accepted, Robert. All right, so we'll move to a motion to approve or refuse this application. So I need a motion from the.
I'll make the
hand.
motion.
All right.
Okay, that the application for zoning bylaw amendment file number D142003 to change the zoning of the subject project property from institutional zone to R2 residential second density zone should be approved. The end.
If I could just interject, sorry. So
Yep.
just a reminder that we are making a recommendation to council here this evening.
Sorry.
Yeah, so if you could change that to a recommendation, that would be amazing.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks, Melissa. Okay, I need a seconder for that recommendation.
I'll second it.
Okay, Bev, thank you. Okay, by show of hands, all in favor? Melissa, did you get that count?
I did get that count, so I will not have Robert or Wayne on that resolution. So we will be sending a resolution to council that you are recommending approval. And a reminder to those on the meeting here this evening, the statutory public meeting will be held on December 8th at 12 o'clock noon at the Committee of the Whole. It will be a virtual meeting. The parents, if you do choose to be in attendance at that, again, please connect with myself and we will certainly make the reports available for you this time and access to that meeting as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
Okay, Wayne, Chair, are you willing to take over?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll move forward, consideration of a recommendation of council, and it is D142003, and I believe it is Kirkpatrick. And we'll move, would the applicant like to present the application first? Would you like to speak first?
Sorry, I
No,
already.
Adrian, you're done.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, Melissa, actually,
Yes, Wayne.
do you want to just instruct Adrian there before we leave?
Sure, Adrian. Thank you so much for your presentation here this evening. I think as we had said, the committee did make a recommendation. So it was a recommendation they were making to council here this evening. Their recommendation is for approval. So we will be sending that recommendation by way of a resolution to council for their consideration as part of this statutory public meeting to be held December 8th. So we will see you again on December 8th, and we will reconvene with you over the next coming weeks about access to that virtual meeting as well, and any new information yourself and Ms. Hristoff do want to submit. We encourage you to do that so we can circulate it to council for consideration.
Yep.
Okay.
Understood.
Okay, so you're free to leave the meeting now. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. A little bit of confusion tonight with the audio. So moving back to Lonnie and Heather, would you like to present the application? Would you like to speak first?
We can, or we can wait for Kevin to give his synopsis.
That's fine. Okay, we'll move directly for the staff report from Kevin.
Okay, yes, so this application D14-20-03 is for a site-specific zoning exemption at 323 Peterson Drive to allow for development of a detached secondary dwelling unit on a lot with water frontage and to permit the height of the accessory building in which the secondary dwelling is located to be a minimum of 0 meters less than the principal dwelling. So what the applicants intend to do is to build a primary dwelling on the property and would like to build a detached garage with a secondary 1-bedroom apartment on the 2nd story. They've indicated that the addition of the secondary dwelling unit will optimize their use of the property and allow them to move with a resident who is currently occupies the secondary suite of their current residence to move with them to the new residence. They have provided some plans for the garage and accessory dwelling to help envision exactly what they're proposing. So the property in question is currently undeveloped with the new structure proposed to be located in the middle area of the lot. The applicants are proposing to service the property with a private well and septic system and will not be connecting to municipal services. Site access and electrical services available from Peterson Drive to the north. And there's ample room on the site and in the proposed garage to meet parking requirements. Site visit on November 10th. I was out at the property and took a few photos to help the community or help the committee envision what's going on in the property. You can see that they've cleared the site in the area of the proposed garage and dwelling and septic field, and this is on the edge of the Winnipeg River. So in regards to compliance with legislated policy and city directives, the provision of affordable housing is a key component of the province's provincial policy statement, which promotes healthy, livable, and safe communities that are sustained in part by accommodating an appropriate and affordable and market-based range and mix of residential types. The policy statement sets out a number of policies that are supportive of these types of residential or of the full variety and range of residential development. The official plan of the city of Kenora has designated this area as rural area, and residential development is encouraged on large lots in the rural area, and secondary dwellings are permitted in the rural area by policy. Under the zoning, however, there's a number of requirements or regulations that are set in place to regulate secondary dwelling units, both interior and detached secondary dwelling units in the city of Kenora. That's in section 3.28 of the bylaw. That section specifically permits detached dwelling units in the R1, R2, and R3 zone. The RR zone is not listed as a zone in which secondary dwellings are permitted, and that's been interpreted since the bylaw was adopted in 2015 as not permitting secondary dwellings in rural residential areas. There's also a number of other regulations which I copied out from section 3.28.3, and I draw the committee's attention to 3.28.3C, which sets the maximum height of the accessory building in which the secondary dwelling detached is located shall be a minimum of 2 meters less than the principal dwelling. And F, no secondary dwelling shall be permitted in a lot with water frontage. And you'll see that the exemption has been specifically worded to permit exceptions to these specific limitations. We circulated this for interdepartmental and agency comments and received responses indicating essentially no concerns or no comments from our operations department, from fire and emergency, from Northwestern Health Unit, from Parks and Facilities, and from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. We also gave notice of to the public in accordance with the Planning Act. It was circulated November 6th to property owners within 120 meters, published in the municipal memo on November 12th, and circulated to persons and public bodies as legislated. And so we are here tonight, and as with the previous application, the council meeting will be held on December 8th. As of tonight, there have been no public comments received, but I would like to note that the applicants included letters of support from 4 neighboring property owners with their application, and those were attached to the application and report. In terms of my evaluation of the application, the official plan is clear in its support for secondary dwelling units in the rural area and does not provide any further policy guidance on where and when such secondary dwelling units might be permitted. Similarly, the provincial policy statement is supportive of residential intensification, and in recent discussions with provincial ministries in regards to our ongoing official plan review, it's been fairly clearly communicated to us that the province's interpretation of the new policy statement adopted earlier this year was that any residential property, excluding ones that have specific limitations, should have the right to have internal and external secondary dwelling units. There appears to be significant, I do want to note that there appears to be significant interest in the development of secondary dwelling units in rural residential areas of the city. I've certainly noticed that in my short time that I've been here. The Planning Advisory Committee, as you know, has previously approved a minor variance for an interior secondary dwelling unit in a rural residential property on waterfront. But an exterior dwelling unit like this has not been approved since the official plan and zoning bylaw were adopted in 2015. So approving this exception may set a precedent and encourages other rural residential property owners to apply for approvals for similar exterior accessory dwelling units. And we do expect that secondary dwelling units will be a focus of our ongoing official plan and zoning bylaw review. So in light of the cities and provinces policies and in consideration of the specific application, it's my professional opinion that the application to change the zoning of the subject property from RR rural residential zone to RR rural residential zone exception 51 to allow for development of a detached dwelling unit on a lot with water frontage, and to permit the height of the accessory dwelling unit in which the secondary dwelling is located to be a minimum of 0 meters less than the principal dwelling, should be approved in lieu of public comments, which we have not received.
All right.
And I'll turn it back over to the committee.
Okay, thank you. So Heather, Lonnie, anything you'd like to add or any comments you'd like to make about that?
Sure, I'll just give a little history maybe of who we are. In 2004, we went through a process where we changed the zoning of our current house that we live in right here to get a rental suite in our downstairs area. And so we've kind of depended on that for part of our income. So as we transitioned to a new house on the river, it's just kind of something that we are dependent on, I guess, for income. And so that's just something we've had 17 years here, as 16 years, I guess, since we built the house, to, successfully with tenants and managing that as principal owners. And so we just want to transition that to the river. So that's probably our next 20-year plan, probably. So when I'm 65 or whatever, probably that's how long-term our goal is here with building this house at the river.
Hopefully longer.
Or longer, so yeah, as long as we'll be here, I guess. It's kind of a nice spot, a nice lookout of Tunnel Island. But anyway, yeah, moving a tenant too. We have a beautiful tenant downstairs that she's been with us for
3 years?
3 or 4 years, and she's almost a nanny to our kids. So we kind of want to have that as well, kind of as a long-term goal. And so part of with this lot that we bought, the profile is quite high. The elevation change between, I put that in the note in the application in our letter, that it's just over 6 meters from where the proposed height of the floor from the secondary dwelling is to the basement of the proposed house. So there's a bit of elevation change that kind of would make putting a foundation in for a garage, have it attached to the house, kind of impractical. So that's kind of where the precedent setting thing is what I'm kind of thinking of, because the profile of the lot, it doesn't really make it practical to have an attached garage. It'd be nice to pull into your garage and walk into the house with your groceries in the wintertime, but it's just something that we can't see that happening because it's just the profile of the lot.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'll see if any of the members from, first of all, anybody from the public that would like to speak in favor of and or against. And Tara, you're the only one from the public. Nothing? Okay. So seeing none, we'll see if any of the committee members have questions for you. Okay, we'll start with John McDougall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've just got the 3.28.3 detached secondary dwellings in front of me, and I'm just looking at that. No secondary dwelling detached shall be permitted on a waterfront lot or water frontage. And I support the concept that is being proposed to us, but I'm just wondering, where we're going to be in terms of, if we allow this application to go through, how does that fit with other applications? And I know we're going through some changes now with some new things coming out and that are in draft form. But I'm just, wanted to bring that up, that it's something that we have to consider.
Okay.
I think, sorry. Go ahead.
No, carry on. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, and from a height perspective, having something that is a little bit out of the fit for what our general provisions are. I get the challenges of bedrock, and I get the challenges of the terrain out there for sure. I've been out in the area, and so I know what the applicant's dealing with. And but I just wanted to bring up that one issue related to the water frontage and how it might impact us later if this application was successful.
Kevin, I think you should answer that question.
Yeah, it is curious. When the official plan was adopted in 2015, it was fairly straightforward in its approach, or what its recommendation, and just that secondary dwellings should be permitted in rural areas. For whatever reason, and unfortunately it predates me by about 5 years, there were a number of limitations put on the development when it came to the actual zoning regulations. When I look, from a practical standpoint, when I look at the property in question and apply, simple considerations such as, does this create a nuisance factor? Is the property unable to support the proposed dwelling? Is there a likelihood that this may conflict with neighboring uses? I really just can't see anything in what's being proposed that causes me planning concerns. And especially in light of, the province's very clear communication with us to this point as to its expectations of our future official plan and zoning bylaw. I expect we'll have to scrutinize where we have such restrictions and come up with very practical, valid reasons for where and when we might limit them. And there might be situations such as where we have lake capacity issues, where we don't permit additional residential development because of a specific nuisance or pollution concern in some areas. But on the Winnipeg River at this point, we have not identified any concerns related to intensification of residential development. So I really just can't find a good reason to deny the Kirkpatrick's, and I gave this a lot of thought because of past practice, but I just can't see any reason to recommend against what seems to be a fairly reasonable request.
Okay. John McDougall, we'll stay with you.
Sure. Thank you for that explanation, Kevin, and I agree with you. I just draw attention to the fact that it's item F in that in those general provisions, really makes it something that is very, very concrete in my mind. But at the same time, I agree 100% with you that it's, from a practicality standpoint, you look at the site, you look at the amount of property that exists and the density in that area. And there's a lot of factors that it makes perfect sense to, in my view, to go against what we have written in our general provisions. But I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the committee, and thank you for your explanation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay. John Barr, questions?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Kevin, and further what John was saying. These type of applications down the road have to be looked at on a site-specific basis. For instance, if this application was for Hilly Lake, you'd look at it a lot differently than you would for, say, where it is on the Winnipeg River. Or if the property had services, you'd look at it a lot differently. But all in all, I think it's fine being on a river like that, even though there is like a frontage on the river.
Okay. Fine. Robert?
No questions with regards to this application, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Ray Pearson?
Just to add to what the Johns had said, I guess this is coming up again when we review the official plan and bylaws and such in the near future. It does give some cause to concern though with potential development on these types of properties and you know, because ultimately we're allowing, you know, if you look at this particular area, you know, potentially 2 homes on every site, all the way down the river for that matter. Again, it's got to be affordable for people, but you know, I guess in this case they can make it work, but I'm sure others can too. So I can see in the future this popping up more often than we think today. This application is site specific, as we've mentioned earlier. It suits the property. There's no question about it. I think it's a really great design and a good idea. But I think for the future, it's got to be looked at closely. So that's just my comments.
Okay. Thank you. Tanis, any questions?
No, just to add to the current discussion, I have to wonder what the intent was on no secondary dwellings on the waterfront. And some of that may have been keeping the beautification of what the land looks like from the water. And it's my understanding that this application, the secondary dwelling, isn't going to be side by side facing the water. It'll be one behind the other. So we're certainly not clogging the view from the water in terms of removing parallel to the water extra forestry. So if that's correct, I don't see an issue with this application, but I do appreciate we're potentially opening some doors.
Okay, thank you. Questions from Bev?
Nope, I have no questions or concerns. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, and I have no questions. Anybody else? Anything else you'd like to add at this moment? Heather, Lonnie, anything? You're fine?
We think it'll be a beautiful house on the hill. You won't see the secondary dwellings from the water. It will fit in nicely.
Okay, so we'll move to discussion. And again, I'll just go back. Anybody? John, any more for discussion? John McDougall?
No, I guess just, you know, we have to be aware that there's going to be somebody, like there's similar profiled, similar sized properties on Black Sturgeon, maybe on the east side, for instance, that would be, you know, not dissimilar in nature to this piece of property. And, you know, the questions are going to come up because, you know, the reality is that the cost of building, there's a lot of factors that if you can turn like a garage that you would have built anyway and change a little bit of the structure to add a residence up above, you know, it certainly adds income and it adds, you know, increases your expenses, but sure, it's an opportunity to help pay for that waterfront home. And I think we just have to be aware that there's going to be people that are in that situation of Black Sturgeon, and what's going to be the deciding factor whether we should or shouldn't do it, you know, because the input from the M&R on whether that lake has the capacity to have one more person living in one more residence that's behind another home, like in the exact same, if you took that exact same layout and put it into a Black Sturgeon property. I'm not sure, but I do know that we're opening ourselves up somewhat to an issue. And so we're just going forward, we're going to have to be prepared to talk about that and rationalize that. And it's going to be, you know, harder to rationalize that once like an application and like this goes through. If it's successful, it's going to be a little harder to rationalize it only on what M&R has to say versus, you know, all the things you know, that we have to consider. So yeah, it's just, you know, going forward, that's an important factor for this committee. So nothing else discussion wise. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. John Bart?
I'm just thinking about unorganized territories and the number of dwellings you have in single properties in unorganized territories where you don't have any land use restrictions. And Kevin, isn't the original purpose of secondary dwellings more for like for granny suites and that type of thing, or is that just just an added benefit?
There's certainly a traditional connection with the term granny suites, and they've certainly been advocated for strongly from those who support aging in place and extended family accommodation and care for relatives. In a practical standpoint, though, you know, in the 21st century, with the increase in housing costs that we've seen generally in the Canadian market, it's becoming more and more a factor of affordability, you know, where you see, especially in markets like Toronto and Vancouver, which also by no coincidence are the most expensive housing markets in the country, were the first to really broadly embrace broad allowances for secondary suites. It's you know, it's become very much an issue of housing affordability, and it's probably one of our key tools in terms of being able to provide a diverse and affordable range of accommodations in a market like this.
Okay.
Yeah, and down the road when we look at the amendments to the official plan and the zoning bylaw, we could, or the city could possibly look at individual watersheds within the municipal boundaries and just simply, such as, I assume Hilly Lake's still in town, just put restrictions on secondary dwellings on some watersheds so that there's some form of direction to future owners about where they might be able to put in a secondary dwelling and not put in a secondary dwelling.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good. Okay, Ray, let's go to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I totally concur with what Mr. McDougall has been commenting on, and I think we have to be cautious, and especially for the future and moving on. I mean, we could be this could be a precedent-setting thing, and you know, what would those sites look like 20 years from now if we've got 2 buildings on every single site, and you know, and how does the environment handle that? I mean, that's the health unit's issue, of course, you know, approving the septic fields, but those fields don't last forever either. I just think moving forward, we have to be aware of what we're potentially approving today. That's all.
Okay. Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have somewhat of a curiosity of what the general intent was 5 years ago of the no secondary dwellings on a water lot. So maybe yourself, Mr. Chair, Ray may recall from the official plan of 5 years ago. Even Tara might, if you would indulge her to allow to chime in. But I could understand maybe what the general intent was 5 years ago, but I can certainly appreciate the situation that we're in today, is that we need homes, we need places, we need hundreds of homes. And this is a 2-home solution towards a 500 home problem. So although I could appreciate maybe the skepticism of opening the doors to everybody doing this, but it is just a small part of the solution that we need. So I don't have many other comments. I am curious of what the intent was, but I don't know if that would really change my mind or change the situation we're in today, Mr. Chair. Mm-hmm. And that's about all I have to add to that.
Okay. I don't think it's necessary to I think the only one here that would have the answer to that question would be Tara. And I'm not sure, do you want to make a comment, Tara? No? Oh, she has, okay.
All right. So I have shared some background information with Kevin during this conversation. I don't know how Kevin feels about me speaking to this matter.
Kevin, you okay with it?
Oh, yeah, certainly. I'd welcome the Tara's perspective. She's certainly spent more time in Kenora than I have at this point.
So the intent 5 years ago, there was a different PPS. And at that time, development was supposed to be directed to within the settlement area. So that was one thing. We didn't want to see any secondary dwelling units because of that. Then secondly, well, and thirdly, rentals were an issue. People were concerned that if there were secondary dwelling units allowed on waterfront properties, the properties would no longer be principally residential in nature. They become more like a commercial. Airbnbs were just coming in to vogue, I guess, at the time. And thirdly, council didn't want to see an overuse of the property and have things, so as Tanis mentioned, you know, take down more trees than necessary. More people means, you know, more amenity space needed. So those were the reasons, as I recall.
Okay, thank you. Robert, does that?
Very well put. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Tanis.
I don't have anything further to add. Thank you, Tara, for your comments. It certainly puts additional light around it. And I think we've certainly seen the focus change and changing towards let's find extra housing wherever we can find it.
Okay, thank you. Bev?
No questions, no comments.
No comments, okay.
Nope, I agree with everything. Yeah, everything's good, yeah.
And so I think this is going to be one of the major discussions moving forward as to just what I've heard tonight. Like I'm pretty sure this is going to be well discussed and come up with some sort of an opinion in where we're going in the future. If there's no further questions, no further discussion, Melissa, are you there?
I am here, yes.
Yeah. Can you just read the resolution?
Sure. Sorry, bear with me for 1 minute.
Okay.
Resolve that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kenora approve application for zoning bylaw amendment, file number D14-2003, civic address 323 Peterson Drive, Kenora, Ontario. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to change the zoning of the subject property from RR, Rural Residential Zone, to RR, Rural Residential Zone, Exception 51. The effective approval would allow for the development of a detached secondary dwelling unit on a lot with water frontage and to permit the height of the accessory building in which the secondary dwelling is located to be a minimum of 0 meters less than the principal dwelling. The committee has made an evaluation of the application upon its merits against the official plan, zoning bylaw, and the provincial policy statement 2020, and provides recommendation to council purely based on these matters, whereas the committee may not have had the opportunity to hear public comments in full.
Thank you. I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make motion that the Planning Advisory Committee make a recommendation to council as written by the Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Seconder? I see John Barr. A seconder. Any further discussion? All in favor? Melissa, are you seeing that?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. So Melissa, you do want to wrap it up?
Sure. To the Kirkpatricks again, we thank you for your presentation here this evening. As you are aware, the committee this evening was making recommendation to council, which will hold your statutory public meeting on December 8th. So your meeting will start at 12:30 and will be held virtually. So again, in the coming weeks, I will be in contact with access to that virtual meeting. And just like the previous application, if there is any further information you'd like to provide us for council's recommendation, please feel free to do so, and we will ensure that's made part of the report.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, we'll move on. New business. And I think I'll start off by apologizing to Ray for catching you by surprise tonight. Technical difficulties.
No problem.
All right. So new business, official plan and zoning bylaw review. Who's gonna speak on that?
I'll hand it to
I
Kevin.
can speak to that.
Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, so as I'm sure you're all well aware, the official plan and zoning bylaw review is underway. We have, the consultant has been working on preparing a background report with input from a small technical advisory committee of city staff and select professionals from the development community in the area. There was a draft report that's already been provided and reviewed, and they're working on polishing up a final version of that. To that end, the consultants have prepared or are still just putting the finishing touches on a PowerPoint presentation. So what they're going to do is prepare this presentation and pre-record themselves presenting it. And that's going to be in a video format, and that's going to be up on the website this Thursday. We're still putting some final touches on things, but we're aiming for it to be up and live by noon on Thursday. We will be sending out an invitation or a notice with a link to all of you. We have been for the last week inviting members of the public to subscribe to receive updates, project updates. I think as of this afternoon, we had 40 some people from the community who've subscribed, which I think is it's a really good start to public engagement on the project. So we will be notifying all of them as well in advance of Thursday. And in conjunction with the presentation, there will also be a survey that's uploaded at the same time and available on the website that all members of the public, and yourselves included, will be encouraged to complete, to provide us with some preliminary feedback on some key issues that have been identified at this point in the project, and certainly to invite broader comment on planning issues and to help inform the actual drafting of a new official plan policies over the upcoming months. And the project timeline currently has the drafting of official plan policies proceeding from now into the early new year, and we'll likely see a draft document provided to council hopefully in late January as we move forward. And I'm pleased to say that although we are only 2 months in, we are still on schedule for having a new official plan adopted approximately 1 year from now.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any comments about that at all or anything? I think we just basically wait and we'll receive it on Thursday. Is that right, Kevin?
Yeah, so we'll certainly make sure to include all of yourselves on an email update in advance of the Thursday. So as I mentioned, we're currently aiming for it to be live on the website Thursday at noon. But also we are still putting some finishing touches. We're providing feedback to the consultants as early as, or as late as today. And I know they're continuing to work on it. So fingers crossed, there's no hiccups, and we do have it live. But as I said, you'll get an email with a link to it.
All right, thank you. Okay. Meeting format for December. I'm assuming the format's going to stay the same. Melissa, any comments there?
Adam, you may want to chime in. I do understand that council is meeting in person, but public will remain virtual, correct if I'm wrong. And so the committee does have the opportunity to mimic that of what council is doing, or I believe we do have the option as well to stay virtually. Adam?
Yeah, I think actually it's kind of pivoted, and I guess with COVID and the second wave getting worse, that we're actually doesn't seem to be any clearer if we're going to be going back to in-person meetings for council. So I think those will, for the foreseeable future, continue to be virtually, and I'd recommend that PAC meetings continue to do so as well.
Yeah, especially the way things are going right now. I think that's a good idea for December. Then we'll see what happens. Okay, anybody, any comments? Anybody? No comments? No, okay. Holiday get together.
Okay, so, oh, here I am. Traditionally, we do meet surrounding our December Planning Advisory Committee. As we just confirmed, the December meeting will be virtual. Unfortunately, a get-together does not look like it will be an option this year. So just looking for any comments or suggestions around an alternative. I do remember that I still owe you, I think, a meal from last year. So I think I have, 2 that I owe you now. So just wanted to put on the agenda discussion. We certainly do not forget, and we are thankful for everything that the committee does for us. And if there are any other, recommendations or suggestions, please do bring them forward. Wayne, we did have one from yourself, but any of the other members as well. We're here.
Anybody else have any comments?
Wayne, would it be possible to find out what the budget is for a holiday get together and maybe just donate it to Compassion, Kenora, or maybe some other group that we can come up to as a group? It appears pretty obvious that we probably won't be seeing each other in person for a while for a gathering.
Melissa, what's your thoughts there?
Adam, I'm deferring to you again, because in previous conversations, I did have to go to Adam to consult with finance.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, generally for what's been approved for, just primarily being kind of luncheon and networking aspect, I think it'd be tough to kind of use those dollars for any other kind of purpose and for which they're kind of intended to be approved upon. So I think it's kind of tough. I mean, and the hope is that, once, perhaps looking at 21, that maybe we can have an extra nice lunch or dinner or something of that nature. But it's tough to kind of use those dollars for any other purpose.
My suggestion was a gift card to each member. Just let them get a gift card at a restaurant of their choice. Well, go ahead, Tanis.
Well, to Adam's point, and kind of goes along the same line, right? The idea is to network and to get to know each other a little bit better versus monetary. I would like to propose maybe we just all have a drink of our choice ready for at the end of next meeting, and maybe just spend a couple of minutes chatting like we do at the beginning of the meeting.
Well, that's not a bad idea. Go ahead, John.
Wayne, maybe there's, and Adam, maybe there's an opportunity if you have some, excess dollars from not supplying us a couple of meals, maybe you can accumulate that. And if and when we ever get through this coronavirus problem, maybe it is money that can go towards another member to go on one of the conferences or something like that that has some value. I don't know. Maybe that's an option.
I thought you were going for Grace Ann.
Well, we could do that too. It's not moving very far these days, but.
All right. Well, we'll see what we can do with that. I like Tanis's idea for the next meeting for sure. For a few minutes anyways, see what the plan is.
Off the recording button though.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, Adam, we'll talk a little bit more about that, I guess.
That sounds good. I don't mind Chance's idea either.
Okay. All right.
We'll put if I could just oh, sorry, Wayne, go ahead.
Well, we'll put something out in the agenda for the next meeting. We'll figure something out between now and then. Sure.
Certainly.
All right.
And we will have a meeting in December. We do have an application for consent, lot addition circulating, as well as a validation certificate that we will likely be hearing as well.
I'm just wondering on the validation, because I don't think, I can't think possibly. Robert, have you done a validation? I don't. Ray, have you?
I don't recall, no.
Yeah, I think I might be the only one that ever was involved with that. So is there any information that you can share ahead of the meeting? Or do you think it's important to just let everybody know what it's about?
We will be considering a validation certificate and a minor variance concurrently. Sorry, I should clarify that. So validation certificates, Kevin, you can chime in as well. So we're both learning this process. I've never done a validation certificate either. And Bev, you've probably seen some of these occurrence. Yeah. So we had a property transfer inadvertently without consent under the Planning Act. So it was a Planning Act violation. So when we look at validation certificates, it's much like issuing a consent. So for us to actually validate that it's, you know, a lot that can exist, we don't necessarily evaluate it like a consent. We have to look at not compliance, we have to look at conformance. So does it necessarily comply? Maybe not, but does it conform with neighboring properties? In this instance, however, we are recommending that the applicant come forward with a minor variance as well because of the lot size. So Kevin, I think this is where you can chime in. In the opinion of the planner, it wasn't something that we could actually consider conformance. So we are seeking compliance.
Yeah, so there's with the properties in question, I'm still getting over the fact that there's a land title system here that allows things to be transferred like this. It's a bit of a learning experience for me. Never encountered this elsewhere, but yeah, it's so not only did they transfer a property illegally, but it was non-compliant. It wouldn't be today, and it wasn't at the time either, as far as we can determine. So to clear up any future problems for current and subsequent landowners, we want to get the necessary variance in there to accommodate or to essentially make the properties legal and remove any headaches for the future landowners.
Okay, Tanis?
Question then, so in that instance, if we were like theoretically not knowing anything about it, what would happen if we recommended to deny the variance?
You'd probably give me a day or two of reading as I try. Yeah, I don't think I've come across that particular scenario in my research on validations to this point.
Bev? Go ahead, Bev.
Years ago, what they used to have to do is find the original owner and transfer it back to that owner and then transfer it forward with all the lands. That's how they dealt with it. So if you had somebody that's passed away, then his estate had to deal with it. So that's why they began using validation orders. It was just simpler.
This does date back about 37 years, I believe, just going from memory. So yeah, that might be complicated.
It is, yeah. And what happens is the lawyer didn't do abutting searches. That's
so
what
is this coming forward by a lawyer?
Yes.
Yes. Well, it was an application made by a lawyer on behalf of the property owner.
Yeah.
Okay, but it'll be presented by a lawyer.
Correct.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I would hope that they will tune in and speak to it at the meeting.
I think that would be imperative.
Yeah, they're the ones that are fixing it, so they should be speaking to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, John?
Just one quick thing on that one that's coming up is if there's any opportunity to give us sort of extended time to look at it or look at a draft so we can kind of get our head around it, it'd be appreciated from my perspective anyway.
Yeah, certainly. Go ahead, Bev.
Also, can we get the plans of survey for it? I think that the visual will be helpful. So pins and definitely the surveys to have a look at will be helpful for them.
We had that in the information package. It's not the most legible. It's a bit old plan, but yeah, I think it should be sufficient for that purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Anybody? All good? John Barr?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you. Night.
Right. Oh, hi, Tanis.
Thanks.
Oh, were you just waving goodbye?
Thanks, everybody. Stay healthy. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye now.
Night, everyone.
Night.